All right, so from our Desmos activity that we did, I think on Tuesday, we talked about the average value. So to find the average value of a function, remember, I like to think of it as kind of like a wave, and then like if that's where all the water level kind of settles. The way you guys were describing it when we did that Desmos activity is the area, the blue area above had to be equal to the white area below for our average value. So the way we find that is by taking the sum of the area under the curve, so the integral from a to b of our function, and then we divide it by our interval. So that the way they've written that, the way your textbooks write it, is 1 over b minus a. So this should look really familiar to like the mean value theorem that we just talked about. So we want to use this. We can actually find the average value of functions using this rule. So we want to find the average value of the function 3x squared minus 2x on the interval from 1 to 4. So we're going to use that formula. So 1 over b minus a, so 4 minus 1. Then we're going to do the integral from 1 to 4 of 3x squared minus 2x dx. Okay, and then we are going to take the antiderivative. Obviously, this is going to be 1/3. We'll get to that in a little bit. The antiderivative is going to be x cubed minus x squared. And we're going to evaluate that from 4 to 1. Come over here to do that. So we still have that 1/3. I'll deal with that in a little bit. So first I'm going to plug in 4. So I have 4 cubed minus 4 squared minus, and then I'm going to plug in 1. 1 cubed minus 1 squared. So let's see, that's going to be 64 minus 16. So that sounds like 48. This is going to be 1 minus 1, which is 0. And then 48 divided by 3 is 16. So 16 is the average value of this function. All right, we are going to take a look at the next one. Let's see if I can get this to scroll. Here we go. So we want to evaluate this function, cosine of t, from 0 to x. Now, they haven't told us exactly what x is. We're going to evaluate it at 0 and at pi over 6 and at pi over 4. Honestly, I can't see those. But basically, like, if this is our interval, what's the average value here? If this is our interval from 0 to here, what's our average value? So we're going to have several different answers here. But first, we're going to do it just in general. So we are going to find the average value. So let's see, we've got f of x. Oh, no, we're not going to find the average value. We're just going to evaluate. Oh, we can do that. Okay, so to do this, the antiderivative of cosine t is sine of t. And we want to evaluate 0 to x. So we get sine of x minus sine of 0. The sine of 0 is just 0, so we don't need to worry about that part of it. So our function is just sine of x. And now what they want us to do is they want to evaluate, so this is our function, f of x is sine x. So now they want us to evaluate f of 0 and f of pi over 6 and f of pi over 4 and f of pi over 3 and f of pi over 2. Okay. So, we just have to plug these in. So the sine of 0 is 0. Sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. Sine of pi over 4 is root 2 over 2. Sine of pi over 3 is root 3 over 2. You can draw these triangles if you don't know these just off the top of your head. And the sine of pi over 2 is 1. In the next video, we will talk about the second fundamental theorem of calculus. Coming up soon.